Hey folks, today we're going to be looking at Excel functions and formulas. Before we start off, it's extremely important to know that Excel functions and formulas, often though referred to as the same thing, are completely different. What a function is a pre-packaged algorithm that we input information into, and then we kind of use the IntelliSense to get a sense of what Excel wants, and then we get a result out of it. What a formula allows us to do is to create that function. As a matter of fact, in order to use a function, it always has to be inside of a formula. And we can use multiple functions or only one function, or none at all inside of a formula to get the results that we need. Every function though has key parts to it. It has a function name, and it will always have some parameters that we need to follow, and potentially optional parameters that's important to consider as well too. And this is taken from IntelliSense, like I just mentioned, and it helps us see what we need to put into that function. And I'll kind of go through that a little bit more in a couple minutes. But let's just start off with what we have here. So here we have a very basic, pretty much revenue statement, just of the kind of inventory and the goods that we have. And let's start off with just totaling these numbers. Now we could do equals cell B5 plus B6, so on and so on, and just kind of go through there. But what happens, there we go. But what happens when we enter a new line? So let's go ahead and let's put a new item in here, like hats. Now let's go ahead and let's put, just something simple, 1,000, and then we can leave the rest blank for now. You'll notice that our number here didn't update because it's only looking at predetermined cells that we selected. So how do we get around that, and how do we make a more dynamic table that accounts for these changes that we'll be doing fast-paced sometimes, right? So let's just get rid of that, because that's the worst way to do a function and a formula, if you ask me. We really want to use our functions to be as dynamic as possible, so we reduce the amount of time spent on formulas, and we improve our productivity. So let's go equals sum, and now let's sum up this whole equation. Let's sum from there to there, and don't forget our brackets. And you'll notice now that it does account for that $1,000 in hats, but something else interesting to note is that if we insert another line, we put something random like boots, and you'll notice if we put 500 now, our formula automatically updates at the bottom, because if we add a row into our predetermined range, what it does in our formula, or more or less our function right here, is it then includes that row for a final result, which is very important to note, and that's why I like doing it that way. And you notice if we take this and just copy it to the right by grabbing the bottom right corner, it automatically then grabs the formula and sums the other columns for us as well too. Nice and easy. Now a couple more functions that are very important to understand and to learn are max, min, median, average, and count. And we won't really get into median in here because it doesn't really apply too much, but I will go through the other guys. So to start off at max, obviously, what it's looking for is the max number in a predetermined set of numbers that we feed into it. So let's do our equal sign, max, B5 to B12, brackets, hit enter, and you'll notice what it does is it goes through and it picks out the highest number in the range that we've selected. Now you may say, well, I can kind of just go through it and find the highest number, and yeah, sure you can. But what if you're dealing with, 50, 100, 5,000 different items, and you're working at a very large company? How are you going to go through and just pick out the highest number and know for sure? You're not, quite simply. And what Excel does for us here is it goes through and it picks out that number for us. And we can also just copy that right across too, and it's going to work efficiently like it did for our sum function up here. So total, or we could actually name this sum. Now if we go ahead to min does a very similar thing. So we're going to start off our formula =, min, and then input our function. We're going to select B5 to B12, put our brackets, and hit enter. And you'll see that it picks up the smallest number, which is 500. And once again, copy that across to the right. And what you'll notice now, though, is that it will pick up zeros. And this can be a little bit confusing, because what if we don't really want to incorporate that and we want to find the next number that doesn't really, have that inputted in there? Well, what we can do is we can just go ahead and delete that from our table, and since we've input a fully dynamic formula, it'll automatically update, go back, and find the lowest numbers. Very efficient. So median we're going to skip for now, but I will get back into it once we get a little bit further into Excel Advanced and also the Intermediate. We're going to go straight to average. So let's start off =, average. And what we're looking for here is just the average number between any of these. And what it returns is 12,653, and that's just the average if you total all these up. And you can see down at the bottom, yes, that is the average if we look at that range. Yes, our max was correct before at 45,000. And yes, the sum of 101,223 is correct. Also our min. Next thing I want to look at, if we just drag that across, you'll see it works efficiently as well, is our count. Now, what is count? Well, basically count is just looking at the different factors that we've inputted into there. How many different items do we have? So let's go again, B5 to B12, bracket, enter. Notice it returns 8. Now let's just go and copy that to the right and see what happens. Well, why did it return 6 here for both of those and only 8 over here? Well, if we go back up to the data, you notice that we have 4 empty boxes for hats and glasses. And what it does is that if there's not actually something inputted into the cells, it'll just skip over them. So although this may mess up your min calculations, typically you don't do min and count together, but if you were to, you would have to carefully go over each one and set it up differently. So if we input that into 0, yes, it would come out now. Yes, we do have a count of 8 different items, but if you're looking, min, max, those kind of numbers, you want to make sure that you factor out those variables to get an accurate display of your lowest revenue generating items. And that's pretty much all we need to know for the basic functions of Excel right now. And we will get into some more advanced ones as we go through this course. Thanks, guys.